The flashlight hit her eyes before the words did. "Step out of the vehicle. Now." Renata Cole squinted into the glare, one hand still on the wheel, the other raised slowly where the officer could see it. She had done nothing wrong. Taillight, maybe. That was it. That was the entire reason an Ashford Creek patrol car had boxed her in at a gas station at 9 at night, lights spinning red and blue across a dozen strangers' faces. "Sir, can you tell me why I'm being?" I set out. Now. The door was yanked open before she could finish the sentence. A hand closed around her arm, hard enough to bruise, and pulled her out onto the pavement in front of everyone. Phones were already rising. A woman near the pump gasped. A teenager on a bicycle stopped pedaling just to stare. Deputy Harlan Voss was 34 years old, built like a man who had spent more time in a gym than in a classroom, and he had the particular swagger of someone who had never once been told no and meant it. "You people always got an attitude," he muttered, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "Broken tail light, and you want to argue with me?" "I didn't say a single word to argue," Renata said. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't shake either, not from fear. From something closer to disbelief, the kind that comes from watching a moment you always knew was possible finally arrive. "You have no rights here," Voss said, stepping in close enough that she could smell the coffee on his breath. "Not until I say you do." A gasp rippled through the small crowd. Someone whispered, "Did he really just say that?" Another phone came up. The gas station's exterior camera, mounted above the pumps, blinked its small red light, recording everything. Voss shoved her toward the hood of her own car, metal against her palms, cold and sudden. He kicked her feet apart like she was a suspect in a felony. Not a woman driving home from the grocery store with a bag of lemons and a rotisserie chicken still warm in the passenger seat. "Sir, I want to comply," Renata said quietly. "I am complying. You don't need to do this. I'll decide what I need." He reached for her wrists, and that was the moment the crowd's whispering turned into something louder. A low, collective sound of anger, the sound of ordinary people watching something they knew, in their bones, was wrong. Renata closed her eyes for 1 second. Just one. Because in 15 years of carrying a secret nobody in this town had ever suspected, she had promised herself she would never need to use it to survive a traffic stop. Tonight, she was about to break that promise. Behind her, Deputy Voss's radio crackled with a second unit rolling in. He had no idea that the next 10 minutes of his career were about to unravel everything he thought he understood about power. People in Ashford Creek thought they knew Renata Cole. She was the quiet woman who rented the small blue house on Larkspur Lane. She waved at neighbors but rarely stopped to talk. She paid her bills on time, kept her lawn neat, and drove a car so unremarkable that most people couldn't have described it if asked. At the farmer's market on Saturdays, she bought the same things every week: tomatoes, basil, sometimes a jar of local honey, and said, "Have a good one," before disappearing back into her routine. Nobody knew where she worked. When asked, she said only, "I do paperwork for the government," and let the sentence hang there, boring enough that no one ever pushed further. That was exactly how she wanted it. 15 years ago, Renata had grown up 2 towns over, in a house where her mother worked 2 jobs and her father, a decorated Army veteran, came home from his second tour changed in ways nobody had the language for yet. She remembered watching him get pulled over once, remembered the way his hands trembled on the wheel, not from fear of breaking a law but from a fear that no law would protect him if someone decided otherwise. She had never forgotten that feeling. She had built her entire life around undoing it. People who underestimated her mistook her calm for weakness. They mistook her silence for having nothing to say. A woman who dressed simply, who never bragged, who let rude comments roll past her without flinching. Surely, they assumed, she had nothing behind her eyes worth fearing. They were wrong in a way that would soon become very